All right, welcome to the webinar. So we've got Kaylee on here. Kaylee, can you turn your camera on? And then hi Nikki, great to see your face there. Um, Gabriel was just down here a few weeks ago. Can you go ahead and turn your camera on too there, Gabriel? Um, and then Randy, looks like yours is still connecting on there. Uh, David Ead, good to see you, David, out here from California. Um, great. David, can you turn your camera on as well? Perfect. Okay, that sounds great. All right, so as we have some more people coming on and as we're kind of going through this, I wanted to introduce Dr. Brian Dahmer. So Brian has been a client of the Business Academy for some years now, quite some. I guess the first time was back in 2013. Is that right, Brian? Okay. And so he now has 6 practices in Florida. And we're going to be going through a lot of kind of that journey and a lot of the training that that he's been through, that his team's been through. And the Business Academy really is a training organization. There's a lot of people out there that are doing consulting and so forth, but there's no one else out there that's really doing training in business. And so if you can just kind of go to what that journey's been like and how we've helped you along the way.
Sure, absolutely. Well, listen, thank you for having me, Quentin. I appreciate it. Yeah, 13 years, let's see, 2013, we were with the Business Academy, was in California in
Yeah.
Orange County. We started our full-time marketer at that point. I think every doctor's problem at the beginning is I need more new patients. I need more new patients. And then quickly, our second biggest need was case managers to be able to just communicate the financing portion of the doctor's recommendations, getting them to commit to care. And then from there, it was just, hit the ground running. And as we started to multiply and create more posts and divisions, I quickly realized that I can't be 2 places at once. I was working between 2 practices 6 days a week, and honestly facing some burnout. And I was micromanaging. I was trying to oversee several posts. I felt like it couldn't get done right unless I was there overseeing it. And I quickly realized that I would be very limited. And I started to sacrifice some of the patient care because I was so focused on the admin side of things that took my focus off of treating with the patients. And so when I found you guys, I came back to TBA and started to study management basics, executive fundamentals. I started to manage by statistics and started to bring in some of my key players to learn the same technology and language and create systems. And that's when we went from 2 offices to 6 offices and actually took more time with my family, had less calls on vacation. I mean, if you're on the call right now, I don't know if you've ever been to that point where you go on vacation, but you're not really on vacation because you're getting the text messages about payroll or somebody calling in sick or something getting dropped with a patient and they're upset and you're trying to put out the fire. None of that happens anymore. We have all of it handled and we've trained really hard on how to solve these problems, even to the point where the hiring and the firing I don't even do as much anymore. And so it's just a sense of freedom. It's a good place to be in as an owner of your company instead of owning a job, and allows you to get creative. I mean, if you want to integrate your practice, you want to be able to add more services like neuropathy or weight loss or functional nutrition, you can now do those things where before I couldn't even dream about putting all that together with what I had on my plate. So TBA has really helped me just create clarity with my organization. They put together an org board. Ethan, who's on the call here, flew out to our office and we sat as a group and came up with a new mission statement. We had one. It wasn't that great. Nobody memorized it or knew what it was. It was just kind of, on our manual tucked away. And so we brought that to light. We created it as a team so everybody felt like they had ownership over that, and then redefined our core values. And so, these are just important steps. Maybe you have all this in place, or maybe some of it is, just needs to be revamped or looked at again or dialed in. And that's what TBA is great at.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Now, when you talk about when you first started up and then, you got a marketer in place, you got some marketing in place. I know that you, to this day, with all the patients you bring in, you do a lot of grassroots marketing. You do, you've got marketers out there. Can you speak to that in terms of, there's a lot of guys that are looking to just, set it on to doing some Facebook and going ahead and getting that going, whatever. But, what does that do for your office, for your community, for the 6 offices that kind of go with that? And how do you bring about all that marketing there?
Sure. I would ask you, as an owner, how many people you're meeting a day? And if it's not 50 people, then you should hire a marketer, because you don't have time to cultivate those relationships. The more people that you meet and connect to, you never know how that turns into a referral source for you in the future. It could be an HR person at a manufacturer, and they need an outlay for their employees when they get hurt. It could be a PI attorney that's looking for that relationship, a doctor who doesn't deal with car accidents or just needs a place to send for musculoskeletal issues. And your marketer can plant those seeds, and they can just set up a quick call or an office tour for you, and your reputation precedes itself. They're talking about all the testimonials and great things you're doing in the office. I've met people, and they looked at me almost like a celebrity because of how well my marketer positioned me. And when I went into that meeting, it was instant, production and doing business together, because that affinity was already there for that relationship. So they can go in things like BNI. BNI, I learned a lot from BNI. It's Business Network International. It's a paid referral group. They're all over the United States. They allow one person per profession. And that's a great thing to put your marketer in. If you've never done it, do it yourself and then transition your marketer into the group. But they'll learn a lot of network marketing just from BNI. I would put them through those courses. They learn how to, cultivate relationships and go into a room and not kill people with, hey, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card. They're planting seeds instead of hunting is the analogy that they would use in BNI. You don't want to go in there and start hunting people down. Everybody has that obnoxious Sam's Club, person that comes in and trying to sell everybody a membership before they even know your name. So things like that you just kind of learn, which, helps them be more productive. And again, developing relationships that you just don't have time to do, because either you're treating full-time in your office still, or you're interviewing staff members or doing reviews with your staff or writing other policy, and you don't necessarily have time to get out there in the community. So having a marketer, to me, is a no-brainer. I would say the easiest thing to do is do your ideal scene and what you want that marketer to produce in a year. Start with how many patient visits, right? How many new patients, qualified new patients. Figure out what case value is worth to you in your office. If it's $3,000, then put $3,000. And you want 10 new patients, then 30 grand, and fast forward that to 360,000 for the year. And there's your ideal scene of what your marketer can produce, $360,000. So if you're going to pay that marketer anywhere from 30 to 50 grand, or you pay them hourly and do a commission. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it, but why would you want to pass up, that revenue, and not hire somebody? So that was my thought process. We have 2 marketers. We're interviewing our third, actually tomorrow.
Great. Okay, perfect. And then obviously the next thing that you went into was report of findings. And back when you started and as you were building up, you did the report of findings yourself. With the training that you put in place and with what you've got in, What has it done for you to have a real standardized report of findings, like a real system that goes in and across all 6 offices, you've got, everybody doing the same thing? How does that affect things?
Well, it's huge because I know what the patient's going to go through when I send them. I used to get worried about sending a family member, a good friend, a church member over. I'm like, oh, is this person going to communicate properly this care plan to the patient to where they feel like there's a lot of value there? Or are they going to be like, ah, you don't take my insurance and I don't want to pay out of pocket and this is a ripoff, or why you pre-selling me all these visits? It's like, we sit and practice and talk about just how we educate and connect with the patient, find out the ruin, what's really important to them, and then just ask questions like, so you've been in pain for 2 years. Are you ready to do something about this? Well, yes, I am. You know that this isn't going to be a short-term fix. I mean, it was there for 10 years. How long do you think it's going to take to correct? And you let them answer, and just by doing this training and asking the right questions and just coming at a point of service and empathy and love for the patient, not only did they sign up, but they're excited about it and ask, hey, could I bring in my husband? He's been suffering from actually something similar in his low back. And that's when you know you've nailed it. You could charge double for the services that you're rendering. And so it takes practice. And, I always did that really well. I was in California with you guys for 10 days and just immersed myself in the report of findings room and drilled and drilled and drilled. But then I quickly learned, like, I want to move on and do other things. Can I train somebody else, to communicate the same way? Not only could we train somebody, but they're doing it better than I was. And so, I get that limitation out of your head. The same reason that, I used to have staff tell me, well, you go to a screening, you bring 20 people in because you're the doctor. And I said, well, actually, I think that you could bring 30 in because you're not the doctor. And they said, how so? And I said, because they want all the answers from me. And a lot of times we talk too much and give them too much, and they don't make an appointment because they're satisfied with the answer. Where you are like, this is not normal. You should come in to see our doctor and let him go further and see how he can help you. But this scan is not normal. And then all of a sudden, you have that sense of curiosity of something's wrong, and this clinic could possibly be the solution and help me. So I think that anybody that thinks that they can't step away and train somebody else, that's a limiting belief. You just need to get over that.
Okay. Okay, great. And then the question here from Gary. So what were the top 3 things you did with the Business Academy that have helped you to scale and to do multiple offices?
I gotta say, Gary and I had a conversation about me transferring my patients to my brother-in-law. And Gary, can you believe it's been like 4 years, almost 5 years ago that we had that conversation? And I said, this is going to be horrible. I've treated some of these people for 15 years, families, and they're going to hate me and they're going to just not want to go to my brother-in-law. And he said, it's not that scary. And I said, well, what do you think? Like 6 months it's going to take? He goes, it's going to take 1 visit, maybe 2. And I said, get out of here. And he said, here's how it's going to go. You're going to have your brother-in-law come in, Dr. Grassi, and you introduce him to the patient and say, listen, Dr. Grassi is going to be adjusting you today. He's reviewed your case, and I'm going to be here with you just to, watch the adjustment. I'm going to be moving on to XYZ position. And I just wanted to be here for this adjustment. They lay down, they get adjusted, they sit up, and I say, how is that? And they say, great. And I say, Dr. Grassi is going to be treating you in the future. And if you ever have any questions, the emails come directly to me, but you're in good hands. And know that I would never bring anybody in the clinic that I personally wouldn't have adjust me or my family. Any questions? No. And that was it. And we transferred patients over. And that was probably one of the biggest moments that allowed me just to let go and really start to soar and scale. I had to get myself out of the way. I was the stopping point. And some people take minutes to make that decision. Some people take years and a whole career to make that decision. They're still talking about getting an associate and becoming phase two because they just have not sat down and had that honest conversation with themselves on what their purpose is moving forward. For me, I remember my professors and some of the mentors I had in my life that wrote books and traveled around and did speaking events. And I'm like, at some point, they stepped away from practice, and I'm sure they were phenomenal tableside one-to-one with a patient. But they had a bigger vision to speak and to create, content that would affect thousands. And so that's what I look at now. I mean, I want to have a bigger purpose. I've done, the tableside with the patients for a long time. I'm really good at it, but I want to start to teach the next group of docs coming out how to be just as passionate and deliver what I'm so excited about.
Brian, the amazing thing is I remember that conversation, and I have to acknowledge you for the fact that you make faster decisions than most people, and that's why you have 6 offices going on 10 versus someone who's sitting there with one trying to get out of their own way. And so I know you made that decision. That was a huge decision for you. I also, just from looking at from the outside in, looking at what your journey, you committed to training your managers. Like, your managers are trained. You went through the business academy training, and then your managers were trained up with what you knew, so you could manage them appropriately because now they're trained on what you know, and so you're all on the same page, right? I mean, so that's another thing I saw that you did. Your managers are at all the trainings all the time,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to hats off to you because you just make quick decisions and you implement and you put the systems in. And I think that any of us could have multiple offices if we just actually made the decisions and put the training in and had a big enough dream. You also mentioned purpose. Like, you also are very purpose oriented. Like, you have such a strong purpose to help and serve as many people as possible. And so, there's only so many people that we can help with our hands as chiropractors, right? Like, we can help a lot of people, but at the same time, if your intention is to serve like a lot more people, you have to get others to get the work done. Like for instance, you have like what, 10 or 12 chiropractors that work underneath you. Like, literally, with what you created, you're no longer working a 40, 60 hour week. You have people helping you, and you're working thousands of hours a week because you have people working underneath your dream. That makes sense?
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
so anyway, I just wanted to commend you on making those decisions because you're you're just basically a testament of what people can do when they implement the systems.
I appreciate that, Gary. It means a lot. There's always going to be, ceilings that you hit. And, the good thing about having a mastermind with other people that have been there and breaking through those ceilings is that you realize it's not that scary once you get through to the other side. And it's very doable, and you can kind of walk through what they went through instead of making the mistakes on your own, right? Why reinvent the wheel when you can do it? And then along the way you perfect it and add to it, and then it just becomes better and better. But I'm excited for the future. Gosh, there's so much going on in chiropractic, and now with the election behind us and just moving forward with that's no more excuses for patients. They're coming in. They're excited to be with us and treat. November is our busiest month out of the year, hands down. So we're wrapping up the year strong, and I'm excited to be on this call with you guys.
Awesome. So when we talk about like the training that you put in place and the training you put in place for your managers, now you've got Michaela. What's her position now?
Michaela's our regional manager, and she's soon going to be split because we're expanding next year. We're going to start heading further north, and we're opening more offices and purchasing more offices. So we're gearing up to that. But Michaela is our regional manager. We have a manager in every location that's responsible for all the stats in the office, including the doctor. And then we have, front desk. Some offices have 2 or 3 front desks, depending on, if they're seeing 500 people a week. a case manager, and then back office CAs. Here's the thing, you want to make sure that whatever staff member you hire, if they're trained properly, should produce a certain amount of money in a year for the clinic. My number is 250,000 that each staff member produces. So if you have $1 million office and you have 4 staff, including the doctor, then that's a well-run staff office for me. I mean, you can put an office and put 8 people in there, and you're getting about 30% production out of each staff member. And it just shows that you need to put training in. If you put the training in, you need less staff to accomplish the same goal. And I learned that really quick because a lot of docs will get really stressed out about the overhead and the payroll. And that's probably why they don't bring on a marketer. They're like, oh, another payroll. And it gets stressful. So that is so important to have, basically stats and things that you're making decisions on.
Great. So, so just backing up there. So Michaela started with you as a front desk person. Is that right?
She started off as a patient in the Hudson office. Then she worked for a pharmaceutical company, and she had a 4-year degree in business management. And I, just started talking about the philosophy of chiropractic, and she realized that what she was doing was kind of empty as far as purpose. And I recruited her, and she started off at the front desk. And then she went into the back office doing therapies, taking x-rays. And then she quickly went into case management and closing care plans and dealing with more of the finances, into management, and then, kind of catapulted her career from there. She's very driven, and she's very organized, and she loves to write policy. I hate doing that. So she fills that void. I would rather be out speaking and meeting people, and she'd rather be organizing and writing policy. And it's a great mix. So whatever you don't like to do, or maybe you're weak at, hire the opposite. And that way you fill that void and complete, your office.
Great. Okay. And then so you've got obviously managers in every practice, and you've built these people up. What would you say in terms of, there's a lot of people that can't find a manager, or they don't have anybody on staff that could be a manager or whatever, and they also don't do a ton of training. What would you say has been a lot of your success in building to that? So you've now, as you get more offices, you plug in managers. How's that kind of come about for you?
Well, I believe that managers are made, not born. I think you need a few key characteristics there, but they don't have to be perfect, and you can definitely mold them and train them into more responsibility. And so if you don't have that person, your next hire needs to be somebody with at least the core qualities, and you just need to start developing them right away. Our managers have weekly meetings with Michaela. We have monthly manager meetings. We have a book club that we do completely separate, where we're just working on personal development. We do different fun exercises with our staff, like the GEMS program, where we talk about everybody's personality and what excites them. Susie over here wants a day off, where Bobby just wants money because he's trying to save for his first house. And that's important, and he'll put in overtime or whatever to get that extra, paycheck. The other person just wants, public recognition. And so just going through just different exercises, making sure that your managers have good communication. TBA's got a fantastic awareness scale and management by statistics that the managers use in a huddle. And so when they get together at the beginning of a day, everybody knows their stat, their goal. And if it's not where it should be, then they have to report how they're going to get it up by the end of the week or the end of the day. And that's just been a huge game changer, because it holds people accountable. When you have to sit in a group, you bring your stat. Is it good, bad, or otherwise? And what am I going to do to fix it? Because the manager's got to report to Michaela. Michaela's got to report to me. And that's how we keep things growing, and we push really hard. And that's every single year we've gone up and up and up, even through COVID. And so we don't make excuses. We just create solutions.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously I've seen your managers down here training a lot. and and putting them through that. And I think you took everybody through the communication and closing. You just had some more staff that were down here last week doing more training on that. You had people that were coming in for management basics, the management by statistics. And then I know that, you've got Michaela, who's been very much on top of that. What would you say is the like the top, training that you really want to put in place for your staff, for your managers, for the different things that's made, a big difference there?
Well, I mean, if you're the owner here on the call, number one has to come your culture and your vision. What is your vision? And you have to sell people on that vision. If they're not 100% sold, how are they going to sell other people? And, and maybe you even are a step before that and you need to sell yourself. I've had some owners not even know what their vision is, and they're wishy-washy on, what they're implementing in the office. I'm like, if you're unsure of it, how are they supposed to implement this and communicate it? So number one, sell yourself. Number two, sell your team. Number three is make sure that you get together and you drill that culture. There's a reason that when you go through Chick-fil-A and they have certain, things that they say, oh my gosh, my pleasure at the end, right? When you order something, it's not like, is that all? Is that all? And you feel like rushed. I'm like, oh, I got 3 other people in the car. Now I feel like, I'm putting you out and inconvenience. This is like other drive-throughs. At Chick-fil-A, right? They say, wow, that's a great choice. What else can I get you? And so it's just those little things. I mean, if your staff answers the phone and they don't have a script on how to answer the phone, they're not standing, smiling, and saying something positive like, I can help you. Just that line right there, I can help you. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who does. So I would say, that needs to be the very beginning of the training and setting the tone. And then also have scheduled time for your staff each week to pull off of the floor and unplug and be able to complete training ongoing. If you don't schedule it, it doesn't get done. And they're just simply coping with the day. They're not doing anything proactive for personal development, and they'll never problem solve the way you want them to if you don't pour into them that way. So, those are some of the key things that have really, got us out of that sticking point and allowed us to expand quicker.
Okay, great. That's a good point as far as, having time for training every day and really putting that there. And I speak to a lot of docs who are like, well, when would you train? Like, how do you do that? Well, do you actually pay them to train? How would you actually set up some time to do that? I'm sure that as you grew, you had to struggle through some of those things, as well. What have you done to really put that in place so that there is training that, that it is, and you don't feel like you're losing out on patient hours or whatever in doing that?
Sure. I mean, when I want to scale really fast, like every other month, we close all 6 offices the last Friday of the month from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and we bring everybody in. Cost me a lot of money to close 6 offices for the Friday afternoon, but it's that important to me. And I looked at the revenue I was losing for, that one half day at the end of the month compared to the next month production from getting everybody on the same page and drilling out points and handling, Dev T, which we call is basically traffic or confusion with the lines of communication in the office. And we just work on those flaps and handles and iron it out until we know it perfect. And that way, the next month, all of a sudden, everything's run smoother. And then we can go on to, our growth ideas instead of just trying to handle, what we're currently doing. You're never going to grow that way. You just go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And so if you don't have that scheduled training, put it in. I meet with all of my providers at least once a month. And we sit down and we go through just key metrics. I never assume that they know it. I always ask questions, and I walk through the office and observe. And when you observe and you see things out, handle them quickly, and then you bring back, and that's how you, basically develop your training ongoing. So those have been very successful. And sending people down to TBA, I mean, I send my staff down there. They're completely unplugged. They're in a course room. It's very structured, organized, and TBA drills them on the material, so I know that they haven't just read through it, but they own it, and then they can come back in and apply it. And so when you have a staff member that starts to think like you and problem solve, it's just so refreshing. And you realize, wow, I got so much more leverage. Leverage is your friend, and training will help you leverage faster than anything.
That's fantastic. Hey, I just want to throw in out there, if you're on this call, I mean, it's because I believe the title was expanding to multiple practices and growing, how to grow your practice. And so I just want to throw out there, like, I'm seeing some people on here like Dr. B, we got Kaylee, Amanda, Claudia, Dr. Eid, Gabriel. I just want you guys, Randy, Phil, I just want you guys to know that there is a 2-hour strategic call for you to actually ask questions. There's no strings attached. You don't have to purchase anything. It's just getting on a call with Quentin, who has helped thousands of offices over his tenure, and this is an opportunity to ask questions on, hey, what's my next step? Here's where I'm at in my practice right now. Here's my dream. What do I need to do next? And so there's a schedule a free strategic session link in your chat box that you can schedule that. And I'm sure there's a handful of people here that have specific questions, and Quentin, you might be leading into that, like a little Q&A. But I just want to throw that strategic planning session out there just so everyone knows.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, no, as you say, first of all, let's go ahead and open up for specific questions for Dr. Brian while we have him.
Yeah, you can use your chat box or you can unmute yourself, guys. So this is a perfect time to talk to someone who has been there, done that. Dr. Dahmer was offered, I'm not even going to say the number. Let's just say every one of us could have easily retired. He was offered a lot of money for his practices recently. And so this is another way, if you're looking at retirement, when you scale like he scaled, you have a really a pretty good payday if someone buys your clinics. But in any case, questions on the chat, or you can unmute yourself for Dr. Dahmer. Joseph.
Doc, did you say that each employee was worthy about 250,000? So you say you got 4 people at an office doing $1 million?
Yes, not counting my marketer and billing staff because they're centralized in our admin office. So that would be separate. If you have one office and you have those services in-house, then I would exclude those. But people that are full-time on the floor with patient care.
So doctor, front desk, rehab person, and office
Case manager. Yep.
Thank you. Wow.
Yes, sir.
And do you want to elaborate a little bit as far as how do you get to that point? Because obviously, Joe, you've got a number of staff in there and so forth, but what's been the best things to kind of get to that point there, Brian?
It kind of tells you several different things. Do I need to raise my prices? Am I bringing enough value with, the person when they're one-to-one with the patient? There's other things that we've done, exercises that we've done for lunchtime, what we can be doing to lunch to bring in and attract more referrals. And when I looked at my managers in the past that were not trained, were just throwing more staff at the problem. We need another body in there when they really did not need that. A prime example, we went paperless and we had the patient check in and put their subjective in our EMR, and then they would go lay down, and they even taught them how to tear the paper and hit the button and start flexing. And that saved me a staff member from doing all that. And so, and the staff loved it because then they could just go in and start stretching. They loved the stretching, and the doctor didn't have to engage in their subjectives every single time, which shortened his table time down with the patient. He went in there, already knew what to do because he's done his day 1, day 2, and you're in there just for an adjustment. So that's just one example of how you can streamline things and make them more efficient.
Great. Other questions? Hector, Gabriel, I know you guys are, I know where you guys are at. What questions would you have as far as, getting up and getting rolling?
How many of you on the call are single doctor practices by raise of hand? Single doctor, or put in the chat if you don't have your camera on, single doctor practices. How many are 2 doctors? Or 2 or more? Multiple? Or is anybody trying to get phase 2 and basically get out of treatment and more management? Joseph is? Okay, yep, Brett, for sure. Well, I mean, TBA can hands down give you the systems to get, your next associate in line. The biggest fear I had is what happens if they don't work out and I got to go back into treatment. There's turnover. There's going to be turnover. It's going to happen, and you have to create layers of people in training and have not just a waiting list practice for patients, but a waiting list practice for staff that want to work for you. And so, I mean, it could be a whole nother webinar on attracting talent and the right people in your office in order to scale. And, slow to hire, quick to fire, but really making your onboarding a little bit more strategic so that you can avoid that turnover, make careers for people in win-win situations. We have very little turnover. I have an associate doctor that's been with me for 14 years. And so that's important if you're trying to scale or you're trying to add another staff member or even sell your practice. You have to have good agreements and you have to create those scenarios where they're motivated. And so those are a lot of the behind the scenes questions that, we can answer at workshops. And I have a lot of fun. I enjoy, going through different, bonuses based on production or, pouring into staff and doing continuing education to where they stay with us longer. We have a program in Florida, the CCPA program, and they go through it, they get a license, and when they graduate, I give them a $1 raise. I pay for their program once they graduate. And on average, they stay with me 5 years or more. The ones that do not go through the training stay with me 15 months on average. So it's huge. And you figure out who's bought in, who's not, and who you need to pour more time in. When I send somebody to TBA, it's because I see a lot of talent in them and I'm rewarding them with more training because I know that they're going to really help us move the needle.
Great. Do you have a question there, Kaylee? Okay. All right. Any other questions here? And by the way, go ahead. Teresa put something in the chat, which is a link to my schedule so we can set up that strategic planning session. And go ahead and jump on that link and go ahead and set up an appointment there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute that one. Okay. Any other questions there?
This is a perfect time. You got Dr. Dahmer, who's been there, done that. Big time implementer, but like the old saying, when you look at someone who's done what he's done, he leaves clues, right? Success leaves clues, and I think that if we were to look at a roadmap, everyone's journey to going to multiple offices or getting a management team to take over or hiring associates, everyone's journey is a little different, but the steps are similar. The timing might be a little bit different. It could be you need to hire case managers and train them up. It might be you need to hire an executive director to train them up. It might be that you need to replace yourself, whatever that might be. But there's a lot of similarities, and so you have someone with Dr. Dahmer on here today where you can ask questions on what's your next step. Like if you guys look at yourself, what is your next step? Because once you make a decision, it's really important to take action on that as fast as possible. The faster you take action on a decision, the more concrete it becomes. So what is your next step? And I think it'd be great maybe just to throw it out there and ask Dr. Dahmer, how he would go about doing that.
Yeah, so this is a perfect time of year to start planning for 2025, to set goals. And I mean, if you have no goals, you don't know where you're going. So you have to write those down. Do your ideal scene. Where do you want to be next November 2025, a year from now, 12 months from now? Make the decision to just act. So many times we sit and listen to podcasts and when we're driving, and we go to seminars and we write down just really cool tips and golden nuggets. And then we go back Monday morning and nothing gets implemented. Why is that? And so if that's you and you're just tired of just the same thing, I mean, you're basically doing it for entertainment. You're not acting on it. And so you need accountability. And the first thing you need to do, write down your goals, what you want to get out of it, monetarily, or just your entire vision, what you want things to look like. And when you get on the call with Quentin, be very specific about that. The more specific you are, the more they can help you. I had a long list of things that I wanted help with. And then we narrowed it down to my top 3. Of course, Ethan made me read Eat That Frog, and waking up in the morning and making sure that I'm doing today what I need to do to hit that end goal every single day. And I stay focused on that, especially in the morning. I get most of my work done before 3 o'clock. But that's important. So it's what's helped me and drive me. And it's what I really stick to with my staff and drive them and challenge them. I want people that are driven around me and going to push me. And so hopefully you guys got something out of today. And look forward to seeing you in the future. I know we got some great workshops coming up on East Coast and West Coast, and I truly enjoy masterminding with people. Some of the people that I've met, I mean, gosh, Brett and I met back at the convention, and we text each other back and forth and have great conversations on things that just help us. He actually came out to an event too, one of our marketing events. And he's a guy that he sees something and he puts it in place. So, and he's just doing fantastic. So be that person, just make a decision. I always say this, Ethan uses this too, make more decisions this year than you made last year, and it'll just propel you, whether they're right or wrong. But appreciate you having me, Quentin.
Yep, thank you very much. And that's certainly right. Yeah, I mean, if you're stuck in a maybe, make a decision. Brett will tell you, he wishes he would have made a decision to join the Business Academy, what, a year earlier than you did, Brett? I mean, how has that gone for you in the last 2 years?
Yeah, exactly. I started investigating, and reached out based off of a Facebook ad. Staff-driven practice was my goal. That's what I wanted. And, I dragged my feet. I thought about it. I was stuck in indecision for probably about a year and a half, until the day that I met Dr. Brian at the FCA convention in Orlando. My wife and I got to chat with him. And of course, how could you not love the guy when you first meet him? He's a heck of a guy. So we made that decision right after that meeting. And of course, now after about 2 years of being in, if I had that additional year and a half under my belt, I'd probably be doing, another 50 to 75%, maybe even 100% more than what I'm doing right now. So yeah, there is a regret of not joining sooner. And to go off of Dr. Brian's point and your point, just making that decision, because being stuck in indecision is a terrible place to be. Nothing gets done. You're just going around in circles, hemming and hawing, and it's such a it's a terrible space to be. So and in our mastermind group, which is the 7th division, the last seminar we did, the most successful docs in that group just make more decisions quicker, and like what Dr. Brian just said, right or wrong, you just make those decisions. And hey, the one good decision you make is going to cancel out like 9 bad decisions. So make that decision and hang on.
Awesome. Awesome.
I would
Okay,
agree.
great.
I would agree with that, Dr. Brett. And the one thing, thank you for chiming in. That was really good. The one thing that I think some of the people who in Div 7, you mentioned our mastermind group, the ones who who are doing really like on top of their game, they get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like you just, it's not comfortable to make those decisions like Dr. Brett was talking about, but you get comfortable making like stretching, your limits, that you think are your limits, and you just get comfortable making, decisions faster. So, and that's something that I think the people in that Div 7 group, the ones who, are the multi-million, the multiple offices, they're just making fast decisions and they're comfortable with just failing forward fast is another way to put it, right? So
Great. Great. Okay, cool. All right. Well, then, I'm going to go, Teresa, if you could go ahead and put me into a breakout room here with Claudia, that'd be great. And then go ahead and set up, Hector, and, a few other calls that we'll go ahead and set up there, Teresa. That'd be awesome. And then, if there's no other questions, thank you all for attending the webinar, and, we'll see you again soon.